decision-making, Captain.
3 cheers for Captain Daly. Hip, hip, hooray! Hip, hip, hooray! Hip, hip, hooray! For he's a jolly good fellow, for he's a jolly good fellow, for he's a jolly good fellow. So say all of us.
God bless you, Captain. God bless you.
Hey everyone, I'm Lucy.
And I'm Oscar.
And we've just watched the Black Mirror Season 4 episode USS Callister. We are here to break it down and go over all the Easter eggs that you might have missed.
But before we get started, make sure to hit that subscribe button. We're going to be doing breakdowns on every episode of Season 4 of Black Mirror, as well as videos we have on the connected universe of Black Mirror, Easter eggs, and loads more. So hit that subscribe button. Right,
let's get into it. Obviously, if you haven't seen USS Callister yet, what are you doing here? Go away, watch the episode
lost.
and come back, because there are going to be spoilers aplenty. Engage. Space, the final frontier, was the setting of this episode of Black Mirror. What did you think of it, Oscar?
I really enjoyed it. I thought it was a really fun camp adventure in video game space.
A romp.
It was a romp, and I think what I enjoyed most about it was that it didn't feel like a traditional episode of Black Mirror. It felt more like Doctor Who or Sherlock. Like it was, like I say, it was very camp, and it had a villain that was overcome, and our group of intrepid explorers escaped into the sunset. And yeah, I just really enjoyed how it was just fun.
Yeah, and a giant homage to Star Trek, which I really
huge.
enjoyed. So aboard the USS Callister, you've got Captain Robert Daly, who is strong, handsome, brave. All of the women want to be with him, and all the men want to be him. And it's kind of like, you know, a perfect homage to Star Trek, basically. And they kind of set off through space and land on deserted planets and get themselves into little scuffles with aliens and creatures that they meet along the way. But
in real life, he's Robert Daly. He's CTO at Callister Incorporated. He is seemingly a nice enough guy, but a bit timid, a bit shy, and he's not a strong enough character to carry the entire business, so he has a business partner, the CEO, James Walton.
So Callister Inc. is responsible for creating a procedurally generated MMO called Infinity, which is kind of like a VR game that you plug yourself into, and you can kind of do whatever you want. It's very similar to maybe the Oasis from Ready Player One, or the internet, as envisaged by Futurama like 15 years ago.
Or actual video games as well, like EVE Online or like No Man's Sky, that kind of thing.
Absolutely. The thing about the game is obviously it is an online game. It needs to be patched and maintained, and a big patch is coming. It's supposed to be coming like the week the episode is set, but because there's a slight delay on it, because of Robert kind of not really paying attention at work, it's not coming until Christmas Eve. It's very crucial. We have to come back to it later.
And the reason he's not paying attention is because there's a new girl in the office. She's new on the team, and she is a huge admirer of Robert, even though no one else really seems to want to go near him or talk to him unless they have to.
It's unfortunate because he is the brains behind this software, and he just doesn't get credit for it.
Yeah, but Annette really takes a shining to him, and he takes a liking to her as well. So much so that he puts her inside of his own personal version of Infinity.
Which is the fucked up part of this episode, because Robert has his own server, essentially, on Infinity that no one knows exists, and in his game, he has built this reality for himself based on his favorite TV show, Space Fleet.
Star Trek.
It's Star Trek, the original series, which is great. And it just means that everyone that he comes into contact with, as long as he can steal their DNA, so people from his office who maybe he likes, like Annette, or people who have slighted him in some way.
Like Gillian from marketing, right?
Like Gillian from marketing. He can put into his game illegally. And the reality for the people who are in that game, well, is it reality? Is it not reality? They are sentient in there, they know what's happening, is that they live in this kind of unending hell.
Where am I?
It's the USS Callister, Space Fleet's finest, exploring the furthest reaches of the known universe and beyond. We are its loyal space crew, and now apparently, so are you. Cheers.
So time passes as normal for them, so they are just in there. They can't drink alcohol, they can't poop, they have no genitals, there's no genitals in Space Fleet.
That was so weird, that bit.
Yeah.
That proper fucked me up.
Yep, everyone's like a Barbie and Ken doll up there. And basically whenever Robert is in the game with them, they have to abide by his every whim and do whatever it is he says because he can torture them, which he does. So
yeah, he can sort of do whatever he wants with them, right? So like he takes Annette's face away just by doing a weird like hand gesture, and she can't breathe or.
But she
eat
can't die.
Yeah.
Which is so it's this real unending hell for her. Like Gillian from marketing turned into a monster. But the worst thing he did was Walton, his business partner, he brought his son, Walton's son, into the game and threw him out of the airlock.
Yeah.
So he's just drifting around in space.
Didn't move.
Yeah, and like Walton had to see his son suffer that, which is grim.
Horrific. So Annette comes into the game and she's had enough almost immediately.
Yeah.
She wants to get out, so she hatches a plan along with the rest of the group, who are a bit hesitant at first, to escape. So they get the attention of the real life Annette via an invite to the game and then blackmail her using her own nudes, which was a...
Don't trust iCloud.
And they use those to then distract Daly, both in the real world and in the game, and use his little device, his little
Wiimote.
Yeah, to steer the Callister into the patch, which is coming on New Year's Eve, Christmas Eve, and into that wormhole that patch manifests itself as.
Yeah, so in doing so, they kind of knock Daly offline, so his conscious self is trapped within the game. His real world self is just lying there because, you know, just doomed, plugged into the computer basically. And we know from a throwaway line earlier in the episode that the office is closed for 10 days after Christmas. And given that we know that Daly has no friends, seemingly has no family, no one is coming to find him for 10 days. So it's fair to say that he's gonna die.
He dead.
He dead.
So let's break down everything we noticed in this episode. Lucy, what was your first big takeaway that you noticed?
I mean, it has to be Space Fleet, so obviously it is a huge homage to Star Trek, the original series. Daly is clearly doing his best William Shatner, his best Captain Kirk. Also, he puts on a British accent for some reason, but
Yeah,
I absolutely love that. That's what makes him the captain, is his British accent. But everything about it, so, you know, you have the kind of wonky looking set, you've got the way that the everyone has a beautifully immaculate uniform / costume, the way that the badge even looks like the Starfleet badge, the way that they have a Federation, obviously they have the Federation in Star Trek and their mission too.
I really liked the way all of the controls just all do the same thing.
Yeah, and they even say that, they're like, you just push any button, it does anything, which is clearly what was happening in the original Star Trek. The way that they beam down to different planets that all look remarkably the same, that have just maybe received a little bit of color grading to look a bit different. The way that the evil guy is just kind of, just an evil guy standing going, that's so Star Trek.
I'm gonna kill you!
Yeah, it's
for
so,
no reason.
So campy. Everyone has basically the same roles as they have in Star Trek on the bridge, and the way that when they go into warp speed, into the patch at the end, into the wormhole, the way that the aspect ratio on the camera looks like classic Trek. And the way that they do that when they hit a bit of turbulence. And another thing is that, so when it's Daly in charge of the USS Callister, it looks like original series Star Trek, but when they go into Infinity Actual, into the main game, not on Daly's server anymore, it looks like J.J. Abrams' version of Star Trek.
It's
so
a really
the new
nice
movies.
touch.
It's really good. A lot of lens flare.
So a couple of other things we noticed. Robert Daly is actually a real-life game designer. He had a 28-year career spanning companies like EA, Midway, Accolade, and it's interesting when you think about Charlie Brooker used to be a games journalist, so I wonder if they would have ever crossed paths at some point.
I do hope that the real-life Robert Daly is nothing like the Black Mirror Robert Daly.
Yeah.
And that it's maybe just the name that he's taken over. Another fun thing we noticed is that when Daly is describing Space Fleet to Annette, he says that Netflix has it these days. Obviously, Black Mirror was picked up by Netflix, and that's how it's distributed. And the fact that in the UK, at least, Star Trek Discovery airs on Netflix. And a lot of the old seasons are on there too.
So one other thing we noticed from this episode is that one of the planets that they land on, Rannoch B, Rannoch is actually a reference to the Korian homeworld in Mass Effect.
And you might recognize the name Rannoch from previous episodes of Black Mirror. So the two planets that they land on in USS Callister are Skillane and Rannoch. They are the characters from White Bear. So Victoria Skillane is the name of the main woman who's been chased because she filmed a little girl being murdered, and the guy who murdered the little girl was Ian Rannoch.
And another Black Mirror Easter egg in this episode is that when Annette is trying to infiltrate Daly's apartment and she orders pizza to distract him, she orders from Fences, which is actually the same company as the pizza company in Crocodile.
Yeah, but in Crocodile, the Fences pizza guy is now a robot van. So this kind of insinuates that Callister is set before Crocodile because it's an actual person.
It's just a dude.
It's just a guy. And one final other Black Mirror Easter egg is that Daly's fridge is stocked with Raymond's milkshake. Raymond is obviously a character from Men Against Fire.
So another thing we noticed was that when Daly boots up Infinity, it's powered by a graphics card called Nvidia.
So clearly
Nvidia
in it. And the dot that Daly uses to join Infinity is very similar to the dot from San Junipero and similar to the tech scene in Crocodile. I'm guessing this is kind of some kind of evolution of that bit of technology.
Into the temple, right?
Into the temple.
And then one final Easter egg is that the King of Space 691 at the end is actually Aaron Paul.
Hey!
Your favourite.
I like Aaron Paul. I mean, the thing is, you can immediately tell it's Aaron Paul because he has such a distinctive voice. He plays angry gamer kid way too well.
3, 2, 1.
You better run. King of Space right here.
King of Space.
So Oscar, what was your favourite moment?
My favourite moment in this episode was towards the end when Walton is left behind to fix the engine so that everyone else can escape on board the Callister, and he's talking to Daly whilst he's fixing the engines, and he's saying, "I'm really sorry, I treated you really badly, I should have appreciated you more, I should have treated you better."
But you threw my son out of an airlock, so fuck you to death.
Great line.
Great
Great
line.
finishing line. My favourite moment is probably Aaron Paul's little cameo. I just thought that was really fun. Okay, so final thoughts. Again, I had another existential crisis.
You got to stop doing this.
Brought
Liz.
on by Black Mirror. Are your virtual clones sentient? Does this unit have a soul? Or are they just programmed to think that they're sentient?
Who knows? I have no idea.
Yeah.
My final thought for this episode was, I think this episode shows that Black Mirror is heading a little more towards just Monster of the Week rather than... There is some social commentary in this, but it's definitely less explicit than it was perhaps in previous episodes and in previous seasons. Whereas, like we were saying earlier, I think this episode is very camp and very fun, and with a villain, which I think is rare for Black Mirror, really.
Yeah.
And
Usually the villain is humanity.
yeah, exactly. Well, I mean, it always is, including me and including you. So we should just end this here.
But before you go anywhere, make sure to subscribe to GameSpot Universe. We're going to have breakdowns of every episode of Season 4 of Black Mirror, as well as videos on Easter eggs and a big fat theory that's going to tie everything together. I'm on Twitter at LucyJamesGames.
And I'm at Deus Dead.
So we'll see you next time.